Unless you only got to know about the Odyssey through the upcoming movie by Christopher Nolan, let me tell you that it is not your typical story like a novel or just a written work, but instead it is a poem. Yes, the whole long story of Odysseus and his adventures is written as a poem by an ancient Greek blind poet named Homer, whose work flourished in the 8th and 9th century BCE in Ionia, which is currently Turkey. His famous works, or should I say poems, were Iliad and Odyssey, just to name the two. As I mentioned earlier, the poem is about King Odysseus, who ruled Ithaca, which is currently a Greek island by the coast of Ionian Sea. He was part of the Trojan War, and this poem is all about his adventures coming home from the Trojan War or from city of Troy, which is currently located in Turkey in today's time. So let's begin. When the towers of Troy finally crumbled into ashes, engineered by the terrifyingly brilliant mind of a man named Odysseus, the soldiers thought the nightmare was over. They thought victory meant peace. But the end of war is merely the beginning of an entirely different kind of violence, the violence of surviving it. Odysseus just wanted to be back with his family and wanted nothing else in his life at that point. It may have been the realization of it all that nothing else matters and ambition can only take you so far in the life, but at the end, love and being with your own people matters the most. He only wanted the quiet texture of his ordinary life. His wife, Penelope, and the son, Telemachus, he had left in cradle 20 years ago. Odysseus and his fleet landed on the shores of the Lotus Eaters. The inhabitants were not hostile. Actually, they were the opposite of hostile. They offered no weapons, no threats. Instead, they offered a fruit. Behind this sweet offering, it was in reality an intoxicating narcotic that induces a profound amnesia. Those who eat the lotus forget their past. They forget their debts, their grief, and their desperate urge to return home and then just wander around the island. Odysseus, before even eating the fruit, recognized the sinister nature of this paradise and tried to help his men. He dragged some of his weeping men back to the ships, binding them beneath the benches. To survive, Homer tells us you must bear the burden of your own memory no matter how heavy it becomes. Running low on provisions, Odysseus enters the cave of Polyphemus, the towering Cyclops and son of Poseidon. The giant seals the cavern with a massive boulder and begins to systematically crush and devour Odysseus' men. In this situation, just brute force or fighting was going to be useless. The giant would come and go into the cave to finish his hunger and would eat few soldiers each time as they were already tired and fearful. Now you may wonder why they did not just run away. Well, the only way was through that passage Polyphemus was located. So they needed to go through that passage to move forward on their journey to Ithaca. Odysseus offered the giant a dark wine. He mentioned that the drink would help him gulp down his soldiers that he recently ate, and when Polyphemus asked for his name, Odysseus delivers one of the most brilliant psychological strokes in literature. Quotes, "My name is nobody," unquote. When the giant falls into a drunken sleep, Odysseus and his remaining men planned and drive a sharpened burning stake directly into the Cyclops' single eye. Blinded and roaring in agony, Polyphemus screams to his brethren across this island, quote, "Nobody is killing me. unquote. Now the other giants get confused by this paradox and just walk away, as they only heard that nobody is killing me. The next morning, the Greeks slip past the giants' groping hands and escape to their ships. What follows is a descent into a waking nightmare, a systemic stripping away of Odysseus' humanity. He is gifted a bag of tempestuous winds by King Aeolus, which is basically in this context a magical way of shortcut to their home. But within sight of Ithaca's shores, so they were very close to Ithaca, his own crew, consumed by suspicion and greed, ripped the bag open early on and unleashing a storm that blows them right back into the abyss. Through the bag, Laestrygonians came, which in this story are cannibalistic giants. They pelt Odysseus' fleet with boulders, splintering his ships and leaving only a single vessel, a small vessel, afloat. Tattered and bleeding, survivors land on the island of sorceress Circe. She turns his men into swine or pigs, a literal manifestation of how trauma reduces human beings to animalistic survival instincts. It takes the intervention of the god Hermes and a magical herb to neutralize her poison, forcing Circe to restore Odysseus' men and offering a terrifying piece of advice. To find the path home, Odysseus must first visit the dead. In the dark, featureless landscape of the underworld, Odysseus confronts the spirits of his past. He meets the blind prophet Tiresias, who warns him of the trials ahead, but he also meets his own mother, who died of grief waiting for him. Following the underworld, Odysseus and his men faces the creature whose beautiful, agonizing melodies draw sailors to their deaths by singing to them of everything they have ever lost. Odysseus plugs his men's ear with beeswax, but he commands them to tie him tightly to the mast. He wants to hear the song himself, just himself. He wants to feel the full, unadulterated weight of the beautiful lie. As he screams to be released, his men only pull the ropes tighter. The sirens, defeated by his restraint, cast themselves into the sea. Odysseus is forced to sail through an impossibly narrow strait. To his left is Charybdis, a gargantuan whirlpool that will swallow his entire ship. And to his right is Scylla, a six-headed abomination dwelling in those cliffs. Now only a true leader can make that decision at that point, as Homer wrote in his poem that, quote, "Only a true leader can calculate the necessary tragedy," unquote. Odysseus chose Scylla. He watches in silence as 6 of his best men are plucked from the deck, screaming his name as they are devoured. It is the price of survival for the rest of them. The final fracture occurs on the island of Thrinacia. Driven by starvation and madness, the crew disobeys Odysseus' strict warnings and slaughters the sacred cattle of the sun god, Helios. The gods do not negotiate. Zeus strikes the ship with a thunderbolt. The ship disintegrates, the crew drowns, and the curse of Poseidon is fulfilled. Odysseus is left entirely alone, stripped of his title, his army, and his friends, washing up like debris on the isolated island of the nymph Calypso. For 7 long years, Calypso holds him captive in an erotic paradise. She offers him immortality, eternal youth, and a life free of pain. And for 7 years, Odysseus sits on the rocky shore, looking out at the blank horizon with nothing in sight, weeping for a mortal life, an aging wife, and a rocky home. Seeing the sadness and crying of Odysseus, gods finally pity him and force Calypso to let him go. Odysseus survives one last shipwreck before finally stepping onto the dirt of Ithaca. 20 years have passed. He is finally home, but he returns as a ghost. His palace is occupied by over 100 aggressive suitors, predatory men, who have spent years consuming his estate, drinking his wine, and terrorizing his wife Penelope. His wife announces a final contest, that she will marry the man who can string Odysseus' massive discarded hunting bow and shoot an arrow through the holes of 12 axe heads. One by one, the wealthy, the arrogant suitors try and fail. They lack the strength, the sinew, and the history. And then the old beggar steps forward, who is just nobody at that point. The room mocks him as he looks weak and frail. But with the effortless grace of a musician, the beggar strings the bow. He draws the cord, let the arrows fly, and it pierces all 12 axes with impossible, devastating precision. The disguise vanishes. The beggar is replaced by the king. Alongside his son and a few loyal servants, Odysseus locks the doors of the great hall. What follows is not a glorious battle, but a cleansing, a violent reclamation of a stolen life. By the time the sun sets, the suitors lie dead in the dust. Penelope, hardened by 20 years of deceit and false rumors, does not immediately embrace him. She tests him one last time, commanding her servant to move their bridal bed. Odysseus grows angry, stating the impossible truth. The bed cannot be moved, for he had built it himself, carving one of its posts directly out of the living root of an old olive tree, deeply anchored into the earth. In that architectural secret, Penelope recognizes her husband. The emotional armor she wore for 2 decades finally shatters, and she weeps in his arms. Homer ends this epic not with the celebration of victory, but with a quiet conversation between two people who have been hollowed out by time. As they hold each other in the dark, Penelope asks him the question that every survivor dreads. Where have you been? What did you see out there in the dark? Odysseus looks at her, and the weight of the last 20 years pressing down on his chest. He smiles through his tears and says, Where do I begin?